Hello again, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of 15-Minute Free Thinking. This one's going to deal with mental health, dealing with issues of impending doom, thoughts of defeat, depression, anxiety, and how to overcome this stupid fucking shit that holds everybody back from living the very best life they can live. And let me tell you, I'm no expert. I'm just a human being. You know this. Any of my subscribers already know that I'm a flawed human being. And anybody who's new to this channel, who may just come across this podcast or this video recording, which I'm doing both. And I do that when I think it's important. I'm not arrogant here. I have no intention of telling you this is the best way to live your life. I'm well aware that each individual has a completely different demeanor, attitude, situation, circumstance. We could go on and on. But let's just get to the point here. I tried to start this podcast about a half hour ago. I got about 5 minutes in, then realized that my audio wasn't turned on. Then another 10 minutes in, and I realized that I got a phone call and it cut off the video. I'm not going to get into the details, but I think it was better. I had to think this through a little bit more. I made a video about impending doom, thoughts or feelings of impending doom, about 4 or 5 years ago, maybe less, 3 or 4 years ago. And somebody, I would say, first off, it had a great response. I mean, I didn't make it. I want to make this clear, very clear. I never make videos on YouTube just to get a response. I never make videos about a topic just to get views. I want to make this clear. I've made 4,500 videos, and maybe once or twice I've talked about a current topic just because I was curious to see, of course, how many people would click, but it was more an issue of this happens to be important to society and to me at the same time. And I say this because when it comes to mental health, it's a very popular topic and it always has been. They are some of my most watched videos. And the reason I stopped talking about mental health issues, herbs, drugs, psychological things is because there is so much bullshit out there and so much misinformation that I wasn't sure what was even fair to tell you was true. As any subscriber or random stranger, you want to trust a person you're listening to. So I made a video a few years ago about impending doom and it had a large response. A lot of people wanted to know how to deal with these feelings. And if you've never had them, congratulations. You're one of the lucky ones. But if you have had them, you know what they are. And just to kind of define it for those who are unaware, it's this utter feeling that everything is falling apart. It's almost like a feeling of dying, because we can't define that since we haven't died as individuals. But it's a feeling that you're either dying or going to die sometimes. It gets that severe. These feelings of impending doom can just come out of nowhere. But I want to make this very clear. They're also quite often exacerbated by using drugs. The only times I've had severe intrusive thoughts and overwhelming anxiety, almost a panic attack, was when I took edibles or smoked a lot of hashish. Now, I make this clear and for, to clarify, I've smoked cannabis for the past 33 years. So a long time, every year, except maybe 1 or 2 when I was on probation. And yes, so I felt what it's like to be sober, went back. I enjoy cannabis, that works for me. However, if I smoke too much, it gives me feelings of impending doom, feelings of anxiety, feelings that the world is falling apart. The fact that edibles or cannabis edibles are available to the public now has opened up that kind of Pandora's box of what happens if a person who's not ready for this feeling takes too much. And it's happened plenty of times. In fact, many of you are probably aware of the time that a cop called 911, and him and his wife, they said they baked some brownies. They basically, I think they confiscated weed from some suspect, and then they baked brownies. This was before it was legal. And they said, we think we're dying. And they called 911 on themselves. It was hilarious, but off topic here. The feeling of impending doom can be exacerbated, as I said, by drugs, but it is often just brought about by life itself. And here's the thing that helps me to deal with any feeling of impending doom or that something bad's going to happen. It is. Let it go. We're all going to die. Now, this often, of course, gets into religion, whether or not you believe there's an afterlife. I'm not going into that aspect, but basically doom is usually set to this world, if you will, this reality. So at the very worst, you've got to be able to just take yourself through the motions of what's the worst that could happen. Once you've analyzed that, you can move on. And that also eliminates intrusive thoughts. When I started the video earlier, I talked about sometimes I used to have these thoughts, these intrusive thoughts, where I would start analyzing my breathing. And my apologies to anyone else who has that. But then I started thinking, how can I make this positive? Because as soon as I would start analyzing my breathing, I would think about my dad who passed away when I was 15. And I was like, I don't want to think about this all the time. But then I said, and this is key, to add on to the intrusive thoughts, I thought, if I'm going to have these thoughts that pop into my mind and I don't want them, I'm going to make them work for me because they're not going away. Whatever you try to avoid, you will get more of. That's just karma. That's just how it works. I don't care what word you want to give to it. If you try to avoid something, it will continue to bash you in the goddamn face until you get it. So just take that under your wing and acknowledge that's a fact. You cannot ignore the problems, the things that bug you. So because these thoughts would come in, I would think, I'm going to identify this with something positive. So I thought, well, I'm thinking about my breathing. Breathing is a good thing in Eastern culture. So how about I use it as a way to kind of analyze my breathing? And then I thought about my dad, but then I was like, well, then I can make it kind of a gratitude for life. The minute I started to make it something positive, my subconscious just said, nah, I'm not interested anymore. I don't want to do this to you. There's kind of this inner monster, an inner demon that's always pushing us. And it's not trying to harm us. It's part of ourselves, but that pushes us to the limits in order for us to overcome bullshit. There are a lot of weak people in today's society because they have too much faith in government, in each other, in their kids or their parents. Some people are so codependent on others that they can't function by themselves at all. And what I've found about thoughts is you've just got to analyze it and let it go, but you've got to do it on your own. There are some things that we just have to process. You can watch this video, you can listen to this podcast, you can come up with your own ideas about what's important and what's not. I'm not here to tell you what's true and what's not, but I know that analyzing things and just letting it flow through is probably the most crucial thing that we can do. And maybe our morals or values or what we think is important scare us. And I found this to happen during psychedelic usage especially. A lot of people really go overboard and start thinking, well, they either get the God complex or they get reinforced in what they believe to be true. Heavy drug use or bad attitudes or bad behaviors can alter the way that we think. It's pretty crazy stuff. With all of this said, I just went and got myself a cup of coffee. Took me about 5 minutes. A delicious espresso, which for me personally helps to calm my mind. Having coffee keeps me focused, but having too much coffee can be a burden. I remember when I was younger and I thought, well, coffee's great. Let's go buy some of these no-dose pills that they have in the store. Or at that time, Vivarin, they called it. There were two different types, no-dose and Vivarin. They're both caffeine pills. So we went to the store naturally and either bought or stole them. I don't recall. And as 15-year-old skateboarders, we took a bunch and went skateboarding. Well, I distinctly remember walking down a hill and feeling just so out of place. The whole world just did not seem right. I was jittery, shaking, did not, I hated it. It was a horrible feeling. But to this day, I still drink coffee. But I moderate my coffee. I drink a little bit in the morning. If I drink too much, I get jittery, get anxious. Cannabis, same thing. Smoke a little bit, I feel fine. Smoke too much, I feel anxious. And I think that's what it really comes down to is the dose. It's very dose dependent. And the feeling that people get from taking illicit, if you want to call them illicit drugs. I mean, technically you could consider caffeine an illicit drug. It may be accepted, but it's not a medicine by definition. Which brings me to the most important chapter here. After talking about intrusive thoughts, impending doom, feelings of stress and anxiety, and mentioning how to overcome these things by being just self-aware and especially not letting other people's expectations rule your life. You have to live for yourself. That's the key. Too many people are willing to be somebody else's bitch. Cater to somebody else's whims. This happens to husbands and wives and kids and parents, friends, strangers even. People have a certain domineering quality over other people. I'm the kind of person you can't control. So I've met a lot of people that want to be controlled. The Eurythmics has a song about that. It's funny because there are some people out there who really have no desire to have self-control or awareness. No self-awareness or, it's like living through the lens of someone else their whole life. And that's fine if that works for them. But I believe if you don't find yourself, not find yourself, but create yourself, then that adds to those feelings of impending doom. But also, and the bigger one, if you expect too much of yourself, it can be just as bad. And that brings me to pharmaceuticals. It's hard not to assume that a lot of the problems we have in this country come from not illicit drugs, but legal pharmaceuticals. And a lot of folks don't realize that 1 in 4 adult Americans take some sort of an SSRI, antidepressant or antipsychotic or anxiolytic, which is for anxiety. Look, I understand. I've taken Buspar, I've taken Valium. I really enjoy Valium. It makes me feel great. But what it does is placates your emotions. Once you've taken it for a while, you realize, yeah, sure, you're not crying, you're not upset or mad. You can just roll along the slow lane in the freeway all day. But guess what? The side effect of that is that you don't get mad. The benefit of not getting mad is that you don't get mad. You don't process life as it really comes. And you're willing to set your real emotions aside, the real problems you have, because it's easier to hide them. But those are short-acting drugs. When we get into SSRIs, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not going to even really get into the details. But let's just say in scientific literature, all the claims of chemical imbalances are bullshit. There's no such thing as a chemical imbalance. It's never been proven in the brain of a living human, ever. And I've argued this point before with people, and they say, no, they know there are there might be 1 in 1,000 diagnoses that are actually a real chemical imbalance, maybe due to some synaptic issue or a connection of neurons or transportation of amino acids to create different, dopamine or serotonin. These things do happen, but they're very rare. Nature generally works shit out. And that's why we have intrusive thoughts. That's why we have depression or anxiety. It's shit we need to work on. It's stuff we need to deal with ourselves. So if we go to a doctor and they give us a pill, say just take this wait for 3 months and it'll work, to find 1 in 4 people take them, and every day, these are long-acting drugs. So if 25% of adults in America are in a complete haze and unaware of their own emotions, then perhaps they've been able to overcome many intrusive thoughts, but they're not conquering it on their own terms. They're not able to go long term. The side effects of some of these medications can be severe. But that's a topic for the future. I have a video coming up about this emotional blunting. So many people who took these SSRIs for years have many, many problems to talk about on that topic. But I should stick to really the main point: do what you've got to do to not be a bitch, to not be a whiny little complaining human being. I don't mean bitch as a female. I mean bitch as any human that's wanting to complain about every one of their problems in life. I had this problem with the checkout person today, and oh, my car did this or did that. Shit, my car was revving up at the stoplight on the way home from lunch the other day, and I thought I was going to crash into a bunch of people. The accelerator got stuck open and the throttle. I still don't know what really happened, but point being, it's fine. I got it over with. I didn't tell anybody about it. I just moved on with my life. So many people want to hang on to every little thing that happens to them. The more negative shit that you drag around like fucking luggage, the more it's going to kick your ass. It's going to drag you down. If you complain to other people about something that happened to you earlier in the day, that's only going to bring it back. And you're basically creating that archetype, that metaphor. You're making it happen again to yourself. Like I said, let it flow and analyze it. I think it's because people build shit up. They really build it up in them. So work through your, problems as best you can, and work through your own recovery as best you can. And I will bid you all farewell today because I have to go cook dinner. I love you all. Peace out. Take care. Give somebody a hug. And don't worry about thoughts. Just let them go. Just think your way through life with whatever happens, whatever comes to mind. Process it and move on. Don't let thoughts control you. You tell your thoughts what you want them to do. Check out my other YouTube channels, of course, and my 15-minute free thinking podcast on audio, or the YouTube channel of Carpo719. And my Patreon is Carpo719 for anyone who wants to contribute and get access to other stuff. Check out my Instagram at also Carpo719, I think. And I'll talk to you all later. Peace.